Hi, everyone, and welcome back to stage 2. You have made it with us this far, and thank you so much for joining us here today. We have had incredible speakers on this track, and we're coming to our last panel here on stage 2. But before we dive in, I do want to mention that we have our auction red zone countdown taking place on stage 1 in just a little while at 6:30 p.m. UTC. And our rapid fire live domain auction is taking place at 7 p.m. UTC. So don't leave us just yet. But before we transition over into countdowns and auctions, we are super excited to introduce Christa to the stage. Christa, thank you so much for joining us. You are going to be joined today by Jay, Morgan, Braden, and Mark. So I'm super excited to have a woman moderating this session today.
It's always great to be here, and I'm sure there'll all be super quiet wallflowers through the entire session.
Good luck with that.
I know.
Well, thank you so much, and I will hand it over to you to introduce the rest of our panelists.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
As Elizabeth just mentioned, this is the last session of the day. What's up with .io? IO is on fire, and despite being a ccTLD assigned to the British Indian Ocean Territory, it's become one of the go-to TLDs for technology, gaming, and startups, often representing input and output. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my panelists, Jay, Paudyal, Morgan, Linton, Braden Pollock, and Mark. We're hoping he is here. I think Mark is maybe a little bit late.
Mark, where are you?
Mark is leaving Mark somewhere.
Yeah, I knew this was going to be a super quiet panel. So thanks guys for joining me. Perhaps I think everyone in the industry knows you all, but for anyone who's new, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background and your favorite book as a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember anything from before I was 12.
Well, 12 then.
What was your favorite book when you were 13 then?
Oh, well. You know that book with the worm, and you open the page and then the worm is like a hole. Anybody? I know there's a bunch of people like,
not reading that when I was 13, but
that was the Hungry Caterpillar. Peter just figured out. Yes, I like that.
In my case, I evolved with time. You know, like I started with religious text, and then comics, and then Mills and Boons, and then internet. You know.
Wait, did you just say that religious texts are comics? Because I fully agree.
No. First religious text and then comics.
I didn't have a normal answer, I guess.
What?
I used to read the Hardy Boys. I thought it was totally fun following these kids trying to solve mysteries. And there was like a moment in time where I was like really into the Hardy Boys, and I kind of felt like,
hey guys, a little bit.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark. We're all just giving a little bit of background on ourselves, along with your favorite book as a kid.
Mark is frozen.
No, he's just good at sitting really still. Actually,
it is pretty good. I think Mark was late because he was charging up his shirt.
Yes.
That's what the delay was.
And he's dropped. Okay, so anyways.
Bye, Mark.
A little bit of background on each of you quickly, and if you have a favorite book that goes beyond the caterpillar, please mention it just for something different.
I just religious comics, which Jay already talked about, but I really was into religious comics.
And do you have a background along with your religious comics?
I've been in the domain space for about 15 years, long enough to have an OG domain Sherpa mug,
Cool.
which I just got. And I focus on premium oneword.coms mostly, but I've been buying IOs, which is what we're here to talk about, of late. been in the space a long time. So I
Awesome.
can talk about a little bit of everything. Not that I know much about all of it, but just a little bit.
Just we can go with it.
can
Morgan,
wing
how
it.
about yourself? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. I'm Morgan. Yeah, like Braden, also been in the space for, I think Braden's got like a year on me. I've been in the space for, I think, 14 years. And yeah, currently live in San Francisco, run a software company called Bold Metrics. And yeah, I'm honored to be here with all these wonderful people. Really good group you have here.
And Hardy Boys. That's your.
And well, that was as a kid. I mean, my favorite book, if you want to go into like actual books I really love, Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson is my all-time favorite book. I highly recommend everybody read it. That was really the first book that introduced the concept of the metaverse. So if you liked Ready Player One, either the book or the movie, you'll love Snow Crash.
Awesome. Jay, do you want to give us a little short background on yourself?
Oh, well, right now my background is black, but see, I started booking domain to resell to my clients in 1999. When in India, we used to fill paper and send check to the network solutions. And, for 5 years, I didn't know this is called domaining, but I was selling domain names, good domain names to my clients. So, this is how I started, and I love brandable names. The names, some individual or company can, they can start their brand or company with that particular domain name. And I'm also into developing domain names. It's been 20 years, 21 years.
Awesome. Mark, you're back. Do you want to give us? Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Some technical issues there. I apologize for that.
I think it's just the interference of your shirt with, the technology.
Well, Mr. Premium.com does make a premium status, I guess. But how is everybody today? Sorry for my lateness there with the technical issues. How is everybody?
I think everyone's great. Maybe you can give us a little background on yourself, and
Sure.
if you'd like to, your favorite book as a kid.
Okay. Yeah, so I originally began in this industry. I fell into this industry accidentally through my desire to come to America from England. And I got offered the job opportunity to work with the .club domain registry, where I ended up in a marketing and sales managerial role there. I then expanded my global horizons and joined the .global domains names registry and worked under Rolf Larsen there for a few years and did some very big successes at that time for the .global extension. .global in 2019 got acquired by Affilius. And as you may or may not know, Affilius, of course, is the second largest domain name registry operator in the world, 20 million domains under management. They actually own 27 extensions, which has since been acquired by Donuts. But during my time there, I oversaw 27 extensions for the premium domain name space. That was kind of my forte. That's my expertise, is the selling of premium domain names. And I had some record-breaking success at Affilius. And then due to the pandemic, I had some personal circumstances I had to attend to. And during that time off period, I began my own domain name brokerage firm, MrPremium.com, which has also had some record-breaking success, especially within the .io domain name space. We've sold in the last 12, 13 months over $700,000 worth of .io domain names, millions of domain names in total. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey. I'm genuinely feel blessed to be part of this industry, because honestly, I have no idea what my life would have taken me if I hadn't initially joined the .club registry, fallen in this industry, and then made a career and a livelihood. And I'm passionate about it. I love it. And book, Enid Blyton, The Faraway Tree. That would be my favorite book right there. I loved that as a kid.
Awesome. Okay. I think most people know me, Christa Taylor. I'm working with Com Laude. I'm also the founder of .tva. And generally, I've been working, I started way back when with Poker.com in the industry. and then kind of just expanded out from there. And just like I think most everyone, we've just fallen into the industry. And my favorite book would have been, as a kid, Choose Your Own Adventure. So I'm going to jump.
I'm a big fan of Choose Your Own Adventure books, by the way.
They're awesome.
They're
Exactly.
fantastic. Actually, that's a good one. That would be my second favorite, maybe, as a kid.
So I'm going to, just for the audience, if you have any questions during the session, feel free to add them to the Q&A pod, and we'll do our best to get to them. And then I'm just going to jump into a couple of questions before we kind of get sidetracked, because I know that won't happen. Simply, let's start off with, what's the attraction of .io names? Braden.
See, that's how it works. You have to call on somebody.
I did that. See? I had to do it at the end.
Well, look, the fact is that I think that there are probably more startups in the technology space than anywhere else. I don't have any data to support that, but that's the feeling I have. I mean, I follow startups and fundraising, and that's what I see. And technology startups like .io, particularly short one-word .ios, just like in .com or any other extension. And the fact is that .io is far cheaper than .com, if the .com is even available in the SLD that they want. So you're talking about a small fraction of the price. And so since technology companies have really kind of adopted IO, meaning input output, at least that's how it's kind of been rebranded. And it's, by the way, happened organically. It's not as if the registry has gone out there and created a marketing campaign. It's just happened over time, which is really pretty miraculous, because .co and .me and all the other ones, there was a big marketing push behind it. And this one hadn't had it. So you see all these technology companies, particularly now with crypto and NFT, just across the board, IO has just been kind of a cool extension to have. I think it has its restrictions as it relates to consumer marketing. I think that if you go outside of technology and you're just kind of a B2C brand, .io is going to be tough. But if your customers are tech savvy, IO is great, and you can get the SLD you want for either it's available and it's available at a much smaller, more reasonable price. And so that's driven the price up. And we're seeing a lot of mid 5-figure names selling, even low 6-figure. And companies are not even considering the .com now, these tech companies. They just want the IO. Morgan can talk about that. And I'm going to kick it over to Morgan, because Morgan helps a lot of startups get names. And I know that they'll say, I just want the IO. So can we get this particular name?
Yeah, it's been interesting for me. I started buying .ios in 2015. I like to say, like, before it was cool. And I remember talking to a bunch of my buddies in the domain space, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody's using .io. And I'm like, well, like, all my friends that are starting companies or running companies or investing in companies are really interested in .io. And actually, the first one was a company, Keen.io, that I knew, that the founder had gone through Techstars the year before us, that did a dev-focused SaaS product. And that was really, they had raised about $30 million from Sequoia. Like, that was really the first time I had seen validation from a, like, tier 1, top 5 VC firm investing in a company with a .io name, and not really pressuring them to change to a .com. And that's when I realized, there's something going on here. So I actually started buying through Park.io. And honestly, like, all the auctions I was in, there was pretty much no competition. Like, most of the names I bought them were just like, I would flag them and I would get them for $99. And I was really surprised, because fast forward to today, and as everybody knows, if you go on there, you're going to be paying $3,000 to $5,000 for like a solid one-word.io. Back then, if I was paying, I remember once I went up on one name, can't remember which one, but everything I was buying was all kind of like what Mark was saying with premium names. I would essentially look at one-word names and say, could I see this being worth at least 500,000 in .com, but probably 7 figures? And can I find that it already sold in the .com for over 500,000 or 7 figures? And that's usually what I say with like other ccTLDs too, which is like, you really need like the most premium. Now .io has actually become so popular with startups, like Braden is saying, like there are, I've seen a big shift from, the last couple of years where people would try to get the .com, and when that wasn't available, they would shift their focus to the .io, to now more and more companies going, well, I don't want the .com because I have a developer focused product. I have a tech focused product. And a kind of an example I give, I think is a really cool example of this, is like the word kitchen, right? So kitchen.com, solid name, not a $10 million name, but I think we'd all agree, like decent one-word.com. And if I told you that like I'm running a company on kitchen.com, you would probably initially think that it's like probably some e-com store or something related to your kitchen. If I say it's kitchen.io, your mind immediately goes to, oh, that's got to be some smart tech for the kitchen, right? Or like refrigerator.com, like probably an e-com site selling refrigerators is what I would first think, or a review site about refrigerators, or mattress.com. But if you switch it to refrigerator.io or mattress.io, I go, oh, that's got to be a smart refrigerator. Oh, that's probably a smart mattress. And that has now happened to consumers, which means that both founders and VCs know that .io is a brand unto itself, and those premium names are more valuable now than they've ever been.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I went and kind of analyzed the entire zone file, and I came up with the top 12 words, and it totally fits exactly what you guys are saying, which were dev, live, code, app, coin, tech, go, kind of generic, data, lab, web, cloud, and crypto. So, I think that's really kind of reflects all of the tech focus there.
And try to get those keywords in a .com, right? Very difficult.
There is that kind of mute thing on your phone, FYI.
It was muted, but it's my computer rang. My phone didn't. So my phone is muted.
I have to give you a hard time.
Of course you did. I don't expect that to be the last time either.
So far, half of us have not had technical difficulties yet. So Jay and I are in a special club now of no technical difficulties.
No, Jay's just been muted this whole time. So God knows what's going on.
Okay, so we're talking about entrepreneurs. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're launching your next project, should you consider an IO, and what are some of the pros and the cons? I think you've kind of already highlighted some of them with the feel for the tech, but are there other pros and cons people should consider?
See, yeah, for me, I love .io because I'm a tech guy. I run a couple of software companies. We are into technology. We are into, SaaS products, right? So, yeah, as Braden said, like it got popular organically. Nobody thought like it would be adopted by a startup or SaaS companies like we have seen, these days. I mean, even crypto companies, NFT companies are adopting, .ios, and because of simply a popular term of computer science, IO, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. That was a term we learned in the computer science. And see, there's one more part. I mean, .io domains are helping building a brand also. If you want to think any brand for your startup, your company, you can add .io as suffix. It is pronounceable. Like I can tell you a tool named Planio, plan.io. Their brand name is Planio. And Snovio, their brand name is Snovio. So I mean, with the help of .io, they can create brand. And .io for me as a user, easy to type, because if you see the keyboard, IO are neighbors, lovely neighbors. Easy to type IO. So I mean, I will definitely consider, and people should consider .ios, because .coms are not pocket friendly these days. Yes, if you earn after selling your SaaS products, after selling your tech products, you can definitely buy a .com one day, as we have seen in the past.
But I think as well, there's a community feel around the IO as well. I've spoken to quite a few people who actually are end users that I personally have sold names to. And I've actually asked them after the sale has happened, like a bit of primary research, why did you choose the .io? It's always good for me as the broker, as the seller, to understand the customer's mind. And it was really to do with the fact that they already saw organically in the external market that IO was being represented by some of these big crypto companies, OpenSea.io, and these other tech companies. And they felt like IO represented their own technology and crypto space and the community. So some of them did try to go for the .com, and either it was taken or it was just financially unattainable. But some others didn't even bother looking for an alternative. They wanted what they wanted in the .io name, in the .io extension, and they found their name, obviously then went through the negotiation process and got what they wanted. But there is definitely a community feel around the IO.
It sounds like everyone here has some IO names. Am I correct? Awesome. So knowing that, how many of you flipped, or can you share some of the notable sales that we've seen? We've seen a bunch in the 5 to 6 figure range. Are those outliers, or are there a bunch more that are happening that aren't being recorded, or is there any insights that you can share there, along with some names?
I think most of the high-end names are not being reported, the high value stuff. I know of a bunch that have not been reported. That's just common. Most private sales are not reported, unfortunately, because then we don't have comps. But it is what it is. I try not to have NDAs on my deals, but it happens.
I think this, to Braden's point there, my company, MrPremium.com, we try and always publicize the domain sales where possible with the permission of the buyer and seller. But again, to Braden's point there, just like in the .com world or any kind of ggTLD space, there's so many factors why both parties may not want it disclosed. But we have done some notable sales. I personally, back in December, so this is before this incredible record-breaking year that we've seen for the entire industry, not just the IO space. But back in December, we sold Bank, B-A-N-K, Bank.io for $80,000, which was part of a $100,000 deal at that time with one other name for $20,000. And at that time, that broke the industry record for the highest ever .io sale. And prior to that, in 2019, it was 67,000 for Swipe.io. And it's incredible to see that it was a year on year. So 2018, there was a high sale. 2019, there was a high sale. 2020, at the end, there was a high sale. And then now in 2021, we've had 8 sales above the sale that I did in December, reaching up to 175,000, I believe it was 4 of them reaching into the 100,000. And something I kind of noticed on NameBio, again, looking at reported sales, again, the top 100 reported sales, just going back a few years to 2018, if of today's reported top 100, 9 were from 2018, 11 from 2019, 13 from 2020, and an incredible 43 are from 2021, and the year isn't over yet. Yeah. And so that is just showing you the immense growth and hockey stick curve up that IO is having. It really is. And again, there's so many sales. We just recently did, in the past 4 weeks, we did around $150,000 worth of .io sales, 4 IO names. Sadly, only one can be reported, which was Tree.io for $30,000, which has just been reported in DN Journal as well. So there's been success left and right, up and down, and behind the scenes as well.
It's really good data, Mark, that you're sharing, because I think that's what it's been interesting to see the evolution. Because when I started buying and selling .io names, I remember talking to everyone that had been in the .com space forever, and they were saying, just price them at $1,500. That's going to be it. And back then it was kind of hard to move them for $1,500. I remember selling some for I would price it at $1,500. We negotiate, I'd sell for $1,200, and then I saw it inch up. But like Mark has said, I mean, I turned down an offer maybe 3 months ago on a .io I bought in like 2016 for $99, and I turned down a $10,000 offer on it, which if you rewind back to around when I bought it, I would have taken a $2,000 offer on it. But the market's moved and it's all changed. And yeah, a lot of the sales, like I know of a couple .io sales over $300,000. Like there are six-figure sales that are happening. I can share just some sales that I've done. I just try to pull like a list quickly of like stuff I could find in escrow that I've done over the years. I've sold summon.io, patents.io, palette.io, crypto with a K.io, arthur.io, jigsaw.io. The theme is all just, one word names. And I think that those are always going to be the ones that command the highest price. And when you look at a domain that would be, say, 750,000 to $1 million in .com, and be like, very comfortably in that seat with good comps next to it, to tell somebody, hey, this in .io is 75,000 to 100,000 is a pretty good value prop. And if that's what they were kind of going for anyways, I think it creates really, not to overuse because what everyone's talking about on Twitter now with NFTs, the concept of a floor, but I think that we are really seeing a new floor established, which is why like I did turn down that $10,000 offer, which just seems crazy rewinding. But now I look at it and I'm like, oh, well, that name, like Mark, like Tree for 30,000. It's like, okay, yeah, like that's a decent price. And I'm sure that, 5 years ago, you wouldn't get offers like that on it. But now like that's where the market has moved. And these premium names, I think, are only going to continue to move up because, and this is something I know Braden's probably the foremost expert here on this, but this is something that's also being buoyed by just the continued appreciation in the oneword.com market, because those are becoming more and more rare. Like when they're off the market, they're gone. We're seeing more and more seven figures there, and that brings up the .io market.
Awesome. I see there's a question from Omar, and he asked the question, how would you compare .io to .co? And I guess the other alternative I think somebody is going to probably ask is, how does it compare to .ai as well? Anyone want to jump on that one?
Well, I think .co has been strong for a long time, in large part because of their massive, really, really successful campaign when they launched. IO, I think, has more of a tech appeal as opposed to Co has more of a consumer appeal, right? So if and I've had this conversation with end users, if you are B2C, so if you're consumer facing, I think Co is better than IO. If you're B2B and you're a tech company, IO is better. And I think. And maybe one of you guys has data on this, but I think the IOs are now fetching more than the COs are for the kind of the empty vessel names, at least the stuff that I invest in, because they'll lean more tech than kind of the EMDs. Although there's been plenty of six-figure .co sales as well. I mean, I just turned down a six-figure offer for .co that I have. And I turned down, we were talking about declined offers. I had an offer for Raven, Raven, Raven.io a couple of months ago for 30,000, which I declined. Turns out it was an investor. So he thinks he's going to sell it for a lot more, which I agree, it's worth more. That's why I turned it down.
Awesome.
Jay, you were going to say something?
Yes, see, I want to add some points here. See, as you said, like if you are a B2C company, then .co is better. If you are a tech company, obviously, your clients are tech savvy. I mean, they understand .io, right? But here's my one point, right? If you're talking about consumers, masses, most of the times they confuse .co with .com. It also happens. Sometimes they send mail to @company.com instead of .co. It happens. Otherwise, whatever you said is right.
Also add a piece about, because the question also asked about .ai, pretty big bifurcation there, because .ai is context specific. Like if you are IO includes companies that are doing artificial intelligence, companies that are doing smart tech in other ways. Like it's a whole market, like B2B, enterprise, DevOps, SaaS. Like there's so many different spaces for .io. .ai is if you are an AI company. So I think like specifically if you're leveraging AI and that's something that you want to surface, AI can be great for that. But I think most AI companies are probably happier to get a .io, like they see it as more premium, but .ai prices are lower. From an investment standpoint, .ai is a slippery slope because they have really high renewals, and most people I know that have invested in those have found the margins get really thin just because there's not a ton of sales velocity in it to support it, and there aren't the same prices.
Awesome.
And I think as well, oh, sorry, Christa, just to mention as well, I think as well, a lot of this tech talk, of course, we know that IO is mainstream tech. We've established that, but there is a lot more broad usage now that is going on out there as well. So it's not just you have to be a technology related company in order to use IO. It is being adopted in other industries and by general everyday companies, but also you are seeing it in the gaming space. You're seeing it in the app space. One thing I found, a little bit of an untapped lead generation opportunity here is if you in your Google, in your Android or in your Apple phone, you literally just type in .io in your store, in your Play Store or whatever it is, you'll get thousands and thousands of name.io, whatever they may be, .io. But guess what? They don't actually have their .io name. That's the name of the game or the app. It's related to the iOS version of the game. So a lot of these companies that I've been reaching out to with MrPremium.com having the names available, they don't even have their own name, but their company name is called whatever, Braden.io. And so it's incredible to actually see that untapped lead generation opportunity there. And the fact that they're not even using that. And so many people are missing the fact that they can get their .io. So it's just a little helpful tip for everyone that as well. There is a lead generation in your Play Store that you can type in .io, find the list and see that there is lots of gaming and apps also using the .io name, using .io, but not having the .io extension.
I think very similar. There's a question here from Daniel. It says, for SLDs that don't have an obvious tech application, but could possibly have some relevance in the future, how do you decide when to take a gamble and buy the name?
I can share my thoughts on it because I've done this a few times, but
please.
I just want to point out first that Daniel is my foster son. So,
hey, Daniel, great question.
So don't go easy on him.
So for me, what I look at is I have kind of a simple thing that I did with .io too, like a funding threshold from top tier venture capitalists. So if over $100 million in VC money goes into companies branding on that name, not from no-name VC firms, but from firms like Sequoia, Battery, Andreessen Horowitz, Excel, like well-known firms, Emergence, well-known firms that are multi-billion-dollar firms in the Bay Area. Once you hit over the 100 million funding mark on that SLD, that's a really good sign because other startups go, oh, interesting. Well, this company raised from Andreessen, raised from whatever that aspirational investor is, and they were branding on a .so or a .gg. Maybe I can do that too.
I look for SLDs that are just more empty vessel that can really mean anything. Like Raven, I mentioned Raven earlier. Which Raven is an animal, it's recognizable, it's memorable. What's the company? Anything. So that's what I look for. I look for a name that can just be used for any company or any product.
And I think that's also where we've been seeing a lot of sales at MrPremium.com. We've done we've sold 51 .ios in the past year now. And it's just incredible to see that the brandable names, and in fact, Braden, you mentioned Raven. I've sold quite a few different animal related names as well. I think for the reason that you just mentioned is the fact that they could quite literally be used for anything. They're super brandable. There's lots of opportunity and usage, but also I've seen lots of singular one word .ios. The plural of the names I have found they're not necessarily not valuable. I'm not saying they're not valuable, but they're less valuable than the singular of that name. Unless of course the plural is the more dominant of that word anyway. But for example, we sold boxing.io for 65,000. So that is one of the plurals that makes sense, because plural, you can't have box.io. It doesn't really have the same effect as the category of boxing. So that also isn't really a tech related name. That was very specific to a game industry that shows other potential usage of IO as well. So I think the short, brandable, one word, singular, generic, also generic.ios is really where the market's at. I often get asked the question about, what about 2 words? What about 2 words? The market really isn't there yet for the 5-figure, 6-figure sales for the .ios. We are seeing movement. We are seeing 4-figure sales. We're seeing a couple of 5-figure sales, but the market right now, where it is today, is singular, one word, brandable, and generic one word.ios. So I think that's where we're going today.
But that's the premium as it relates to any TLD, right? So the singular is typically more valuable than the plural, because the singular could be a brand, the plural becomes an EMD, an exact match domain, related to a product or service, right? So you've got more opportunity with the singular, regardless of the TLD.
Yeah, just to answer Daniel's last point, like how do you decide when to take a gamble and buy the name? Like I have 10 years old single words, 2 words, super premium.ios. I mean, in this quarter I sold 2 domains, one for 120K, which was well reported and sold via Afternic, and another was NDA 180K name, bought by stock trading company for their tool. So I mean, if you say gambling, you have to speculate well. You can be fail. If you say gamble, you can be fail. And domaining is, after all, game of speculation. And there is thin line, very thin line between speculation and gambling. You have to understand this point.
Awesome. I'm almost out of time, but we have probably a minute, and I'm going to take one more questions here. It's from Quincy, who asks, with these prices rising this quickly, do you expect that this is a bubble that will burst anytime soon?
No.
No. See, the point is, we have seen .info, we have seen .biz, but in case of .io, we are witnessing so many big companies, so many successful startups are using .io, and they are not going anywhere. Deep tech companies, AI, machine learning, good SaaS, damn good products, Snovio, Planio. I mean, there are so many products, mind map machines, etc. So no.
When people ask me that, I usually say, oh, sorry, Brent, go ahead.
I was going to say that the way you can tell the difference between what could be a bubble and what is not is, a bubble is the investor price, the wholesale price is going up, but there's no end user adoption. It's just investors buying it, right? Which has happened many times. I mean, even with the Chinese bubble, with the 3 and 4 character .coms, there's no end user adoption. With IOs, it's not just investors buying it. Mm-hmm. This is organic growth. This is end users using them. So we're seeing companies launching on .io. There's no way that there's a bubble here that can burst, because it's the adoption that's driving the prices, not just investors speculating.
Absolutely.
When an investor asks me that, I always answer the same way. Yes, huge bubble, don't buy any.
Well, on that note, I think we're pretty much out of time. It goes so quickly, but again, thank you all for joining. Jay, Morgan, Mark, Mr. Premium, and Braden.